Yes, so recording is started. Sandeep, floor is yours.
Thanks, Kunal. Thank you. Let me share my screen quickly. The presentation now. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Kunal. Thanks for the quick introduction, and thank you for this opportunity, Vipul. Like on a Saturday, we are here to discuss some interesting topic within Copilot Studio. So today's topic will be deep dive into generative orchestration in action, specifically within Copilot Studio. As we are here, some or all of us here has a good understanding of what actually Copilot Studio is. Even though if you have not built any generative orchestration powered agents, that's okay. We will be exploring that same thing within this session. And this is not just it is it even if you don't know the Copilot Studio, or if you are very new to Copilot Studio, it will be quite understandable, because this is a foundational concept for building any agents on Copilot Studio. So without any delay, we'll get started. And very quick introduction about me. I'm Sandeep Angara. I work as a senior specialist at Protivity India member firm, where I work for the India firm, where we develop applications and intelligent agents to Protivity itself. We are an internal facing team. And I mostly work with Microsoft Copilot Studio, agent flows, which is Power Automate flows, and also started exploring Microsoft Foundry and Azure AI tools on Azure. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, and if you have any questions regarding Copilot Studio and Foundry, I will be reachable on LinkedIn. And you can also find me posting few blogs related to Copilot Studio. That's a quick introduction about me, and let's jump into the orchestration and what generative orchestration brings us to the table. But let's first see what classic orchestration is within a Copilot Studio. But let's pause again and just uh, understand what actually orchestration is when we are building in agents. Not just in Copilot Studio. If we are building agents or chatbots, which is a classic term, which is the old term that we used to have. Uh, if we are building such agents or copilots, which we call it today, the basic layer, the foundational layer, where starting from understanding the user's intent, which is what user is actually asking for, like the request or the prompt, upon the prompt of a user, understanding it and making a decision, thinking over it, what to do, and what kind of tool set that this agent has, and which is the right tool to invoke, or the topic to invoke, or the conversation flow, because here the topic might be new for few, which is a foundational concept again in Copilot Studio. Topic is nothing but a conversational flow, a dialogue flow. So let's say whenever we have all seen classic chatbots here and there. Whenever we open some web applications, chatbots pop-ups from left and right corners, asking users what to do and all. So if the user selects one question or asks a query, the related conversation flows within the topic selected, or within the question that the user has asked. That particular dialogue flow, or the exchange of conversations between the agent and the user, is nothing but a topic here in Copilot Studio. So coming back, orchestration is nothing but the layer that it actually makes the thinking, makes the decision, make a plan, and ultimately respond to the user for the given query or the given request. That's the process of this is called orchestration, and the layer that performs this job is orchestrator. So that's how orchestration works in any agent. So today we are talking about generative orchestration, but we have to see what actually how agents use it to work, how actually chatbots use it to work, and what generative orchestration has a paradigm shift that it is bringing today. So classic orchestration in Copilot Studio works like a single intent clarification, a single intent processing. Like let's say we have 5 to 10 different topics or the dialog flows that is configured to the agent. And when a user asks a query, it can able to match one very closely related topic and can execute the all the actions that are defined in that conversation or the dialogue flow. It can only do one intent clarification, like it can only capture a single intent from the user and can process it within a linear fashion way. So that's how a classic orchestration works. Even if there is no topic that matches the user query, or even if there are multiple intents which user is putting to the agent, it fails to match a closely related topic, or it might overlook some few of the topics and ultimately fail to fallbacks to some default topics. That's how classic orchestration works. But these can also be there where there are few use cases where we can just uh, take a user input, you just process it within a linear fashion or within a deterministic flow. It still be useful building agents or bots with a classic orchestration. But but that's not how our intelligent AI agents that we are building doesn't work. Will not work. The actual concept that has shifted from classic bots to today what we call agents and copilots is the foundational concept of generative orchestration. So as we understand how classic orchestration work, we will now see what generative orchestration brings to the table. So, as I said, in classic orchestration, it can't capture the multiple intents of a user. But here in generative orchestration, it can capture multiple intents. When a user is prompted to the agent, it can able to process multiple intents. It can make a plan to how to achieve and how to actually respond to the user to completely complete all the actions that are specified by the user. What are all the actions? What are all the tools that the agent has configured? And what are all the matching and what are all the things that it needs to do to satisfy the user request? It can draft out a plan before execution, and the agent starts executing one after the other, ultimately responding to the agent once the plan is completed. This is possible due to the large language models behind the Copilot Studio. Earlier, within the classic orchestration, where there's only classic orchestration in those days, where it was called Power Virtual Agents in the Power Platform suite. Now it is generative orchestration. As I said, there is no large language model support back then when it is Power Virtual Agents, and classic orchestration doesn't work on top of an LLM. It works on a pre-trained model that is not can't be configurable, or you can't switch between different models also, so that it doesn't have the generation capability. So, but in the generative orchestration, as there is a support and the backbone of large language models, it can think, and it can generate a plan, and the agent is able to execute those things. That's the actual shift that we have been seeing from classic orchestration to generative orchestration. Now, if we can put it in this some picture, this is how generative orchestration uh, does its job. Capturing user utterance, it will, as I said, it generates the plan first. Let's say there are two different knowledge sources, because all the agents today we would need to have the knowledge grounding for it, so that retrieval augmentation generation happens, so that the actual knowledge that the for our end users, whatever all the knowledge that it needs to, that particular agent needs to get, we would be configuring different knowledge sources. And also different dialogue flows would be there, different conversation flows where we keep having different actions and flows attached to our agent. So now the agent, after getting the user utterance, it will now figure out what is the right knowledge to pick up, what is the right topic to pick up. It can combine it. If it is multiple intent, it can combine what needs to be done first, what needs to be done next. It combines it into a plan generation, and it starts executing. In this process, it will also do some intelligent things like slot filling. Let's say one simple example. We can have one agent, and we let's say a C-suite employees or the executives are interacting with the agent. And if an executive comes and says, uh, what products offers are being at a great sales in the last quarter, or if a product name has been embedded or within that prompt, if a product name is being spelled out within the prompt, the agent is intelligent enough to fill the slots, whatever the entities that it can fill. Let's say in the same prompt, where what are all the products that are making a good sales in the last quarter. You don't need to define the last quarter is October to December 2025, because we are already in January. Provided the right instructions, this agent is now capable enough that the user is asking the results of the sales of products from Q4 2025. So that's how the slot filling works. So these intelligent things that it can do with the power of large language models again. So once a user is uttered a prompt, a plan generation happens, it and then executes whatever all the things that it drafted within a plan. So being said that, these are all the other things that not the other things, but an overview on generative orchestration, where if you see on the picture, there is a conversation map. That's the old term actually we today call activity map. So whenever you build an agent, you put some topics, you put some knowledge, you put some tools over it to the agent, and you start interacting with you and rightly configured, not just putting it or dumping in all the stuff to the agent, rightly configuring it. And yeah, after that, when we test the agent, for the makers or the authors of an agent, there is an interactive map how it is drafting out the plan. Because straight away we can't build and we believe this agent will work on ship the product. We would need to test. For that purpose, for testing, for all the configuration that we did within that agent, how this particular agent with all the existing configuration is able to think, is able to plan actions, and how is it executing sequentially, what are the actions that it picks, and is it picking the right tool at the right time, is what we can determine using the test pane within the Copilot Studio, and it shows us the activity map. We will see that in the demo. And it can also has the capability of dynamically chaining actions and topics together. As I said, agents are nothing but agents. We can't just give one or two actions, because agents should do multiple jobs. It can able to retrieve knowledge, it can able to talk to external systems and all. In that process, we might be ending up having different topics. We might be ending up having different knowledge sources and tools here and there, even from external sources. But the beauty over here is when there is a multiple intent, it picks up and it can dynamically change what actions to do, and you don't authors or the makers doesn't explicitly not to wire or is no intention or not necessary for us to statically wire together all the actions, all the topics together to satisfy a user prompt. Understanding the user prompt, it can dynamically change those actions and topics. Handling multiple queries not anticipated or built in by the user, we already have talked about it. Automatical slot filling, we also thought of. So that's how generative orchestration works. And here is again a quick differentiations between classical and generative orchestrations. We are pretty much covered everything. It is the default out of the box model that comes pre-trained with classic orchestration, but generative orchestration uses a large language model. And on Copilot Studio, we do have an option to switch between models. Today, there are GPT models, and we're also having Claude models that are coming up today. And tomorrow, we're also having different model support where we can deploy a model on Microsoft Foundry, bring it to the Copilot Studio, and have this as a base response model for the agents that we build. And configurations is just done in classic orchestration through adding trigger phrases. There is no kind of instructions, descriptions for the topics. There's only trigger phrases. Let's say for email action or even for getting some items from a SharePoint list, you configure a topic, but you can't define it specifically within all the instructions or the descriptions, but you can just train the topic within different trigger phrases, which is kind of 10 to 15 words of length, and you can have multiple trigger phrases trained to the topic. And if the intent of the user very closely matches to some of the trigger phrases that we have trained, it will invoke the topic. But if it deviates slightly from the trigger phrases that we have trained to the topic, it is not able to trigger that even that trained topic and the configured topic in classic orchestration. Here we can define our dialog flows or the conversation flows, which we call topics, within within good amount of character limit, and there is a good amount of word limit, and we can purely clearly define when to invoke a topic, when to invoke a tool, and what are all the inputs for that topic to execute, that action to execute. There are few outputs for inputs and then outputs. We are able to describe the inputs and outputs so that the orchestrator or the agent actually understand how to fill up those inputs and how to grab the outputs from certain actions or some certain connectors. So automatically, as I said, like automatically generate questions for missing inputs. If we train describe the inputs rightly, it will also be able to show up the ask the questions for missing inputs and dynamically fills if it is already provided in the prompt. So that's how quick differentiations between classic and generative orchestration. And here is a quick slide of how in generative orchestration, it's all about writing clear descriptions and clear instructions to make this happen. This make this happen in real time. Because we are talking about dynamically chaining and we are talking about intelligently invoking the right tool. But for the LLM or the orchestrator to pick up the right tool at the right time, agent instructions and the descriptions for each of them needs to be well formatted. If you see what are all the reasons for how tools or topics are orchestrated, for each of the parameter, you will see the commonly descriptions and instructions. So if you see guiding an agent when the knowledge should be used, it's purely instructions that it would take care of and take into consideration when to invoke which knowledge, and even guiding the agent on populating the inputs and outputs, which we call slot filling. We again you describe those inputs and outputs because it's generative AI. It is able to capable of reading that description. It is able to understand the semantics of it. What is this input do? What is this output do? It is capable of understanding the semantics. So with that, we'll jump into Copilot Studio interface. We'll see a quick demo of how generative orchestration works. So I have put one simple use case over here, which is pre-sales collateral agent. We'll come to the use case demonstration in a bit, but I just want to show you when if you're new to or pretty much very starting of the Copilot Studio journey, this is how your interface would be. After creating an agent, it will take few seconds when creating agent. So I have just created an agent and have done nothing. When you create an agent, this is how this interface looks like, where you will have overview, knowledge, tools, agents, topics, all these tabs. You pretty much we use knowledge, tools, and for if we are able to connect with other agents, we use agents sometimes. But topics, tools, knowledge are the very important components of an agent. So let's understand where orchestration actually comes from, which setting and all. So I go to the setting. I didn't see that. Like yeah. So within this, if you go to the settings button, so there is all settings sits for this agent. So the very first setting that we can configure is the orchestration because it's the primary, it's the foundational concept. As I said, it's the first setting that we have where how this agent needs to orchestrate. Is it classical orchestration or is it a dynamic, which is generative AI orchestration? Generative AI orchestration, as said, it is powered by a large language model as a base response model. So by default, any agent that you create on Copilot Studio today falls under dynamic or the generative orchestration setting. So sometimes you might sometimes have seen it goes to classic orchestration, but if there is a difference, you just can come back to this generative AI settings and just switch back between different orchestration methods. I have created another agent just to show if classic orchestration is enabled. So in the settings page, what I did was I just switched back to classic orchestration. So that the difference that you would see is whenever you were, sorry, so whenever you are in a topics where I said as topics, these are the conversation flows. A simple example is, let's say, greeting. So whenever user types some greetings, it will also greet hello, how are you and all. So this is kind of conversational flow. So when a greeting has been a greeting prompt has been issued by the user, a user prompts a greeting, we are also greeting, and that's all we are doing in that conversation flow. If we want to perform more things and all, we will add more actions to this particular conversation flow or dialogue flow. So we will ask questions, we can ask questions, we can do some conditional logics here and there, we can use variables to temporarily store things, and like whatever the user gets, we get information from user, and we can do some parsings around variables. So whole lot of things that we can use. These are actually useful for building intuitive conversation flows. Uh, what all we would require is it is all satisfied with by this available tool set within this topic. So coming back, in classic orchestration, you will only find for any topic the trigger phrases. Even if you go to add custom topic, you would only be allowed to create new trigger phrases. You could create multiple, a lot of good number of trigger phrases, but you are only able to create that terms or like commands or the trigger phrases. So, but whenever we switch back to generative orchestration, the difference you see is for topics, whenever you add a topic, you will be given a good amount of text box that you can, I think its limits are almost more than 2000 characters. You can put it a good description so that it satisfies different edge cases and all. And if a user prompt, even though, because those are the trigger phrases, it should exactly or very closely match to the trained trigger phrases. Here we are not trading the topic with the different trigger phrases, but actually describing it when to trigger. So if you describe it very clearly, very with using all the prompt engineering techniques and all, it will pick up this particular topic that you configure at the right time and at the right moment, and it will execute this topic and includes in the plan generation at whatever the time that it requires. So that's how the difference in the topics within the core generative and classic orchestration. There are a whole lot of other things that we get benefited as we covered in the presentation, like knowledge grounding. There is no concept of tools over there. You can build Power Automate flows and manually, like statically wire within a topic. Let's say we have this topic and you need to talk to external system. You will deterministically define this flow one after the other sequentially using these tools, like adding a tool, adding a connector, adding a Power Automate flow to run within this topic. Everything you would need to wire it within a topic, and it can only satisfy one intent. Now let's say this agent, this generative orchestration agent, now let's come go back to our use case and explore one use case and how that use case can be satisfied, or we can just use that use case to understand how things are being put together in generative orchestration. A very simple, playful use case. We have this document where, let's say, pre-sales team always wants different templates because they used to get emails and they used to send emails day in and day out with for different types. So I made it simple, three different categories of templates for SOW and proposal cover email, some other things. So this particular PDF as a document, I've added as a knowledge for it. So configuring a knowledge, we can after defining or creating an agent, we will upload our knowledge. So if I come to this new agent, I go to knowledge and I can add the knowledge over here and I can upload my file, which is my pre-sales template. which would actually take a good amount of time. Like it depending upon the file size, depending upon the file content, if it has tabular forms, if it has images, depending upon that, it will take some time to index it into the dataverse, and to process it, kind of process it, it will take a good amount of time. So we have it ready within this agent where I have configured one knowledge. So upon this, like up till this point, we have created an agent. We have fed a knowledge source. So now pre-sales team, any people can come into it, come here with this access to this agent and ask for different kind of templates they would know for. So let's say they are asking for pricing summary email. So what it does, as I said, it actually shows the activity map whenever user prompts anything. Agent starts, the orchestrator starts its job, it understands the intent and shows the plan that it has drafted for that particular query or the request of the user. It's very simple prompt. The user is asking what is the template for pricing summary email, and it has fetched some knowledge sources and it has fetched the right template for pricing summary email. For the pricing summary email, this is the template for model, total cost, and all. So that's how it has bring us this particular template. As you can see, this is the activity map we call, and it shows how is it making out a plan. And as this is a simple query, it just had to call knowledge sources, and there are other tools and topics that are being configured to this agent, but those were not necessary for executing, or for those are not necessary to satisfy the current user intent. So it doesn't draft out a plan that includes other tools and topics. So this how but how this particular agent or orchestrator knows that they should invoke, I could have, because I currently have only one knowledge source configured. But how will it know there might be 10 to 5 different files? Or if you see in the add knowledge, you have different types. Azure ASS, database table you can add, Azure SQL table you can add. You can add public websites. In the real time, it is agents doesn't just have one single source of knowledge, it will have multiple others. But how will this particular agent, even though there is only one knowledge source, is able to figure out that this is the right knowledge source that the agent or the orchestrator should pick up and provide the response, is purely the descriptions that we provide. So I just provided it's a simple thing, but it is information contained in pre-sales template, and it also obeys and morely look into this particular instructions. So whenever for every user term, meaning every user prompt and message, we will be retrieving the relevant knowledge from the configured knowledge sources. If there are multiple knowledge sources, I would define it very clearly that this particular knowledge is for the purpose of this, and this is the time that it should rightly invoke. If there are very many multiple knowledge sources and all, and also the sequence that we can describe over here, even let us say whatever that it asks for, first we would be retrieving the knowledge from the configured knowledge sources, what we have passed instruction to this agent. So with this instruction and combined description of the knowledge source that we have provided, the agent is intelligent enough now to invoke that knowledge and provide the response. Now more to it. So what I have did was I have attached it a tool which will actually send this templates as an email. I have named this tool as send a template through email, and describe this action that whenever a user asks to send any template, the template they ask for, they can ask for emailing it through an email, sharing it through an email. So at that particular time, the agent should invoke this tool, and this tool sends the required template information through Outlook email, is what how I have described it. And I have hard coded it to my email currently. But let's say in the real time. If user asks to email it to some user email, some provided an email address, this is intelligent enough to understand this particular tool because this is a tool. This is actually a connector, the Outlook connector, which I'll be showing it to you. Tools are nothing but actions like you can define a flow within a Power Automate flow, which is agent flow, and you can add it as a tool. Not just flows, even the whatever, if you are coming from a very Power Platform, Power Automate good background, you would daily, day and day out use connectors in Power Platform. So all the connectors have the native support within this Copilot Studio. You have the native support to Excel connector, SharePoint connector, so what are all the actions that are supported in Power Automate and all are also supported over here. So we can make use of these tools as per the use case. So currently I have make use of Outlook connector where sending out an email, but I just if I just add it as a tool, it doesn't work. The agent doesn't work. I need to define it when should it invoke, what are the appropriate inputs, or if it is static inputs like this. This is one example where if at all we want to send it out always to some email, we will hard code it. If at all the agent needs to figure out to whom to send from the user prompt, we will describe that this input needs to be filled up with an user email address. This is then input that is confined to filling out the user email addresses. But how do we describe it? If I switch from custom value to dynamically fill with the AI, I can customize this particular input and specify the description, how this, what is this input for this particular action, and I can describe within 1000 characters, which is a very good amount, to describe how to fill this. If at all user prompts it within his prompt, it dynamically fills it. If not, it will ask question. If not, it doesn't fail directly, but actually it needs this input, but the user hasn't provided. But this agent or the orchestrator intelligently asks that to execute this action, you need to provide the email address. You don't need to go to a topic. You don't need to define a question note for this. This particular tool, when it is invoked, it intelligently asks you those questions. If at all the user doesn't provide with that intent. So let's see how this particular prompting works. So what I'm asking now is asking the agent to email the proposal cover template. So it has, as you see in your on our left side, activity map. This is for the first query that we have asked, and for the second query, it is not as it is saying the email. Email means some template. It is not just directly invoking the email because I have configured those actions and described it very clearly. Whenever there is a prompt from the user asking some templates, you should first go and search for the knowledge source to pick up the right template and then execute the other tools. So as this prompt involves emailing is an action, but it also involves to email what, like the proposal cover letter cover template, so that it first fetches that knowledge and then this particular whatever it retrieved from that knowledge is being it within this user context, and within that knowledge window we have invoked the orchestrator invoked the Outlook action, and this is now fed into this Outlook, and I did received an email prompting giving me the same template through via email. So that's how we wire it through. So I didn't manually wire it through a topic. If I were to do with the classic orchestration, I first couldn't actually satisfy capturing that, getting the proposal template and then emailing me. I couldn't even capture that user is intending to do that. I should have to manually ask questions after retrieving a knowledge. Do you want to send this as an email? And upon user intervention on clicking yes or no, I could do the subsequent actions. But here it is intelligent enough to plan it through. If at all only ask for a template, it doesn't send emails and all. It just retrieves that knowledge and throws it in the chat window. If at all, if we ask for templates, if to be sent through an email. It first gets the template and then emails it. So quickly going into the other thing where I have another tool that I have defined. Actually, not the tool, I have now defined the topic. Here, now let's say within the same, we have one template for product. Yeah, I think this one. So pricing summary. So let's say a user comes and asks, first retrieve the pricing models and the total price given a product ID. There is one simple list that I have configured in SharePoint with some product IDs, product names, and then pricing model and total cost. Now, we will try to solve to bring this given a product ID, let's say this product ID, given a product ID, it will bring out the pricing models and total cost. It retrieves the pricing template from the knowledge. This is not the knowledge, this is actually a connector because it might update here and now when more products would be added later on. So this is one particular uh, SharePoint list and that I was calling on demand from a topic. So once user asks, given a product ID and asks it to email the pricing template for this particular product, now we will solve that the orchestrator should first fetch the pricing cost and pricing model, get the knowledge of the template, fill whatever the pricing models of the total cost within the template, and then email it. So there are three intents over here. So let's try if we can solve how we can solve this. So this is the prompt. Oh, sorry. So I was just first trying to ask in this prompt, what is the pricing model and the total cost for a particular product? So what does is it's with the description that I have provided, it picks up a topic that for grasping or retrieving the pricing model and total cost for a given product ID. This is the right topic that orchestrator should invoke based upon the description that I have given. I describe it that whenever user wants to know a product pricing given a product ID, invoke this topic. But how does it actually fill this product ID? Because I can get all the items, but I just want the item like the pricing model and total cost for this particular 214. So 214, 500,000 and fixed pricing model, it could be able to figure out and send it only that for the product ID. For such inputs and outputs, whenever we are, as we have seen already in tools, whenever we configure a tool, what are all the required inputs and outputs? Because that is a connector, out of the box connector, or even from outside Microsoft Word, the connector is actually defined. You don't need to define how to perform and what are all the inputs. Whenever we create a connector itself, we will see a list of mandatory inputs. But here in the case of a topic, we are actually designing one flow or designing one conversation or a dialogue flow, which whenever user asks a pricing model and all, trigger this topic. So that it's our responsibility, authors or the makers' responsibility to kind of define it properly and define with the right inputs for this topic to actually trigger and start executing things. For that, after describing this topic, after this trigger, you go to a details page and go to the input tab. So that I have here, if you see, I have created one product ID variable and have described how to fill this product ID. If at all not given, it will prompt me what is the product ID. As I have given it intelligently with the description that I provided, because a product ID is 11 character alphanumeric and it will be an example as also is what I have given to it, so that it can figure out, it can fill that it into an variable because that's a product ID is a variable, and I have configured my connector to filter out only for that particular product ID. So I have configured site address, list name, and then within this expression, I have wrote a configured one power effects where it only filters out for that particular product ID. And then there are also the output variables. So in the details page itself, if we go to the output tab, it will have the pricing model and total cost, because get product pricing is a topic. Use it to get the product ID from the user and emit two outputs where it will be around pricing model and the total cost of that particular product that the user is looking for. But I am a big, I just didn't have any message node, that I didn't configure any message node to show up, because, but even the orchestrator is intelligent enough, because this particular topic is completed and it emits two output variables so that it can generate a response for me without me writing one message node and writing this is this particular pricing model and putting all those variables manually. I leave it to the orchestrator so that it will define it. It will, the generative orchestration itself, it generates a message for me. So these are the details for your query. Now, as I said, I am having the other intent where there are multiple intents now. Get the pricing cost, get the template, fill that template with these pricing details, and then email it. So there are three intents. Now let's see how it behaves. So the prompt that I'm putting in it is get the pricing model for this particular product ID and email me the pricing summary to me. So let's see. Even the moment I hit this hit submit, it actually starts planning out. First thing it invoked is get product pricing. Second thing it did is it fetched the knowledge for that particular pricing summary template. And then it invoked me a connector action, which is sending in a template to an email. And now if I go here and to the recent email, it had given me this template wherever it can't find any details from that information, because from that previous list, previous topic, we are gathering pricing model and total cost, and it can be able to intelligently fill in those pricing model and total cost, and it has given me those template with other placeholder that it can't fill, and which there is no context for those placeholders. So this is how this particular generative orchestration works. And yeah, that's pretty much everything about generative orchestration. And here are the here with it comes this is one kind of power that we have, but it can also have some consequences where if not properly described and designed, it might fail at many times, not sometimes, it many times it will fail, all because we it's not because the knowledge or the tools that we put together and the topics, it is because not describing it properly, not instructing it properly. So while designing or while developing this agent, whatever I do, I don't write any instructions first at all. But I just configure tools and topics first and see how agent is behaving. And if I know that that will fail because it doesn't have the right context, but I will just want to know how is it thinking, what is it picking up, given there are no instructions. And then I start drafting out the instructions so that now the agent comes actually into the understanding of the right tool, the right knowledge, and the right topic to invoke at the right time, and also to fill up all the inputs at very properly as per the descriptions. So that's how we don't actually wire all the things, because we are not here solving a deterministic flow. If it is all a deterministic flow, we can achieve it through directly topics itself. But here, what we are trying to do is we can't expect a user to not just only ask for email. There might be tomorrow. Let's say, as in the previous example, as I was saying, get all the sales details for the last quarter, which are all the good performing products, and email it to me, and also post it on my internal teams channel. Now there are different intents, right? So we are trying to solve getting the knowledge from our database about the sales, visualizing it, which is generating chart from the data, posting it in an email, posting it in the internal teams channel. We all have ready everything. it's ready-made available in the agent. For Teams, you have a Teams connector. For Outlook, you have an Outlook connector. For Knowledge, you define somewhere, be it in a Dataverse or you have the tables outside of the Microsoft world, you can bring that knowledge. Everything is ready-made and kind of connectors to it. But describing it properly, instructing it properly, and testing it, and within this testing and then refining our prompts, refining our how the agent works is where the actual key lies in the generative orchestration. Because if that fails, it because the large language model has the capability of thinking. If you don't instruct it how to think and how to not how to think in general, but for this use case, for that use case that we are solving, it can use its general knowledge. Coming to the general knowledge for let's say this is particular agent, there is another important setting that we should need to be taken care of. In the settings, in the generative AI tab, whenever we are trying to solve our custom use case where strictly we don't require the general knowledge of the agent or strictly we don't require the sources from the external like websites and all, we should always disable these two settings within the knowledge. Because if I enable it and provide whatever the knowledge sources that I had, it will surely look into those knowledge sources how far you describe it properly, but the LLM is still have the access to the external systems and general knowledge, and it still tries to solve the problem with its own knowledge, general knowledge, without much focus on the grounded knowledge. So whenever we have those custom knowledge sources configured and confine our agent within that boundaries, you just turn these two settings off to the turn off. So coming back to the presentation, we still have one slide where there is a very simple checklist. As I was mentioning in the my final comments, the general setup is we all have the tools and knowledge sources. It is properly writing instructions, ensuring that all those were wired correctly by the generative orchestration through those descriptions and instructions. So ensuring tools and sources are topics for deterministic orchestration. Let us say, sorry, let us say we have a use case where we are not solving multiple intents, or we are not handing it over to the orchestrator to determine a plan and all, but we have a deterministic flow to follow through. We can just add it to the topics, add all the connectors to the topic, and just define the topics and leave it there. But if at all we would want to handle it multiply and intents, and also to intelligently wire connectors, tools, and topics based upon dynamically the dynamic prompts of the user, we would configure it and we would describe it when to invoke or trigger to them. But if it is a deterministic orchestration, we can still, because the topics are there for the control. I can I can create one of in our previous setup, I can create a tool to get items, but I didn't do that through a tool because then I have to capture a custom variable to put the product ID in. That connector will emit me the SharePoint connector's default inputs where the list, the site name, the list name. But here we are filtering with a variable called product ID. For that, I would need to describe that product ID, what it is that input and all, so that I choose a topic. I invoke that particular get items connector within the topic and defined that this is the product ID. These are the two outputs that I am carrying out. And that topic invokes and then the orchestration fills in inputs and outputs. So this kind of determinism we would need to determine for the use case, or not just the whole use case, but even if we are trying to solve one simple problem, we would need to see if it is at all deterministic. We go to the topics, or we can just trigger one or define one tool to that or connector. Accurate names, the topic names, tools names, descriptions, instructions are the key. Wherever you go here and there, or whatever you configure, what component we configure in Copilot Studio, names, descriptions, instructions should be detailed. And the other thing is they should not be conflicting. You write 5 lines of instructions, first line is conflicting with the fifth line, gone. The orchestrator confuses and goes into the hallucinations. So it should be like a single source of truth, whatever that we are instructing it. As I said, general knowledge mode is on for better results for complex instructions because it needs to understand. If at all, if we it is confined to only the knowledge sources that we have to provide, or it doesn't need to be a chit chat style or very interactive because we can define that interactive style through topics and having adaptive cards and message notes that we would. But if we want to user to interactively do those things, we would sometimes on the general knowledge setting, not the web grounding, but the general knowledge setting alone. Writing effective instructions, we have covered it. Markdown formatting is also there for the readability and comprehension, but it doesn't actually affect a agent if you use Markdown or doesn't use. But if you, in the case of the overview, if we can edit. So this is where we can write all the descriptions. This is Markdown. You can bold it, you can underline it. This is for the readability of the author of the maker. That's a one good practice. We can also when writing instructions over here, not all the places in the descriptions are all, but in the overview only this instruction pane supports calling it explicitly mentioning the tool names or the topic names. If I have a topic and I have an instruction that whenever user says this, you always look into this topic, I can go and hit on the forward slash and I can choose a topic from. So these dynamic explicit mentions of the components like tools, topics, and within these instructions is also possible. So that's how Markdown works for the readability and comprehension. Specifying certain tools, knowledge sources, and also including the guardrails. That is also important. It will actually the foundational model itself takes care of guardrails and content filtering, but it's also important for us to impose a few rules. Conversational instructions. There are two ways that you can like table, bold, underline text, everything from a response. Like as we got the responses here within this agent, we can tweak how it should look like. Uh, like the response provided by the agent, you can either define it, but for the better results in the settings, there is one response formatting where the orchestrator looks into it and provides the responses within this instruction. These instructions are only for the response formatting. If you ask for it to provide in a paragraph, it will always provide you the answers within a paragraph. If you ask it to format it in bullets, it will add bullets. If you ask it to add slight emojis here and there, it will do that. So this is the response formatting specific to the response formatting. So being said that, those were the general checklist when we are developing agents within generative orchestrations. And yeah, that's it for today. And thank you for the session. So I'll now I'm open to any questions if we have anything.
Hey, it was nice session, Sandeep. It was interesting.
Thanks, Kunal. Do you have
Does
any questions
anyone
for me?
have any questions?
Yeah, hi Sandeep. It's a very nice session. Even you can share that regarding, we can go through in future also.
Yeah, yep. So the organizers, Kunal and people will be doing that. Yes,
Yeah.
that will be
Even though
available.
like you have any blogs related to Copilot
Mhm.
Studio related things,
Yeah, sure.
you can please share.
I will. Yeah, I will drop this here in this chat. You can refer it. But one very good source is Agent Academy, Copilot Studio Agent Academy. If you Google it, that's Microsoft provided learning paths. It involves all those labs and all. It has two learning paths as of now, Operative and Recruit. So those were the very good resources to get started with Copilot Studio. Even the advanced concepts are covered.
Oh, like Copilot Studio Academy, correct? That
Yeah,
topic.
Copilot Studio Academy.
Okay.
Can you share
Uh,
the link, Sandeep?
Sure, I
Yeah,
will do that.
I'm
Yeah, someone may have to. Yeah,
Thanks, Sandeep. It is very nice session. Suppose if you want
thanks.
to practice, and that means is there any trial version or something? See, right now, or only we have to be in organization.
Mhm. So yeah, you can trial like 30 days trial will be there for Copilot Studio. You can avail that. So after 30 days it will expire, but you can get a free trial for 30 days.
Okay.
So Darshia, to answer your question that like can response formatting be specific to connector or topic, or it will behave as a generalized one? There is a chance because that's a global instruction where um, we are putting all the instructions related to response formatting. Even though after the connectors output is there, you can define the instructions, but we can't guarantee the response formatting will actually behave with this in taking into the consideration the global because we are defining it globally for all the responses. But there is a workaround, like there is one technique where I will quickly show you. Is you can use the adaptive card, or let's say I have this particular tool, right? After this tool execution, there is one tab called completion. It won't respond because this particular tool is nothing to do. The generative orchestration will actually determine if it can send a message. If it is just an email, sending it an email, there is no specific output for this. It is like a success or failure. The generative orchestration after executing this tool will generally provide you that email is sent successfully or some failures. But if there will be few connectors as you mentioned, and there would be some outputs getting out from that particular connector, then you can just write a response with generative AI, write specific response and send an adaptive card with that output. So that you can explore this option where if you write the response with generative AI, it again will obey all the global instruction. But if you write a specific response, you can format it like bold, italic. You can specify it within the format that you require for. For that, the output variables will be like topic dot output. You will be finding out it here. So the output variable will be within a record. You can grab all the pieces that you need and format it whatever however you need. And also an adaptive card can be sent out. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, got it, Sandeep. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
One question, Sandeep. Like everything will go execute under topics only. Normally, everything you define the steps in topics only. So that
Yeah,
main part in Copal Studio is like topics, correct?
yeah. So what are all the nodes or actions that you need to wire if you have a deterministic flow? It's possible through a topic only because you have all the options to connectors. You have to if you have multiple agent connects, you can connect to one agent from there. A Power Automate flow to a out of the box connector. You can have a HTTP call over there. So all those options that you have if you have a deterministic flow to solve.
Even like generic orchestration that was connected to topics only.
It's not like it's connected. We can define topics, or you can define tools. You actually the best case is actually using both of them. So based upon the use case, we would actually require tools. Sometimes we would actually require. So topics are for more control. As I said, in our case, we would need one variable and to filter out that particular list and all. So we have to define it one variable somewhere. So I had to choose a topic because if at all I don't need to have some control over that, and that particular connector can itself work autonomously when provided all the inputs were there and the generative AI fills in. I can define it as a topic as a tool. Else, in the other case, if I want more control, I can define two topics. It's actually a combination that works well. Tools and topics should be defined for a generative orchestration agent.
In the tools, you can define only email template, or other than email template, you can define anything.
No, no. Like the tools is like a very vast list of the tools. As mentioned, there are all the connectors that you see on Power Platform generally. So if I go to the connector, you will find connectors for Outlook. You will find connectors for Teams. What are all the connectors that we have on Power Platform are almost there over here. If you go and do a Power Automate flow, you add an action, you find out few connectors. All the connector support is there natively within Copilot Studio. If at all there is no connector, you can always go with the REST API. You can always have the HTTP call from particular Power Automate flow and link connect that Power Automate flow, which is just agent flow. So it's not just Outlook. There are a vast number of connectors working as tools.
Okay. Whatever add anything in tool that you can use into topics, correct?
Yeah, we can use it. We can use it.
This kind of custom business logic you can add and you can use into topics.
Correct. There is one other setting where if at all, let's say I have added this particular tool and I just want to, I am not calling this in any particular topic. I can provide the intent is clear and all. It can autonomously means like the agent can pick this tool anytime in the sense if the agent feels it within the plan that this particular tool is useful or if this particular tool need to be invoked to satisfy the user prompt at that every time it doesn't go to any topic, it just trigger this particular tool and go. But when I switch to only referenced by the topics or agent, I can only call it through a topic, this particular tool. So I configure here in the tool, but this particular tool, whenever it find, even if the intention is email, it won't actually trigger this tool, but actually trigger a relevant topic, and within the topic it is being triggered. So this setting will allow orchestrator not to go ahead and start this tool autonomously. It should be called upon explicitly from a topic. So this is that one setting.
I have one more question, like how it is
Sure.
integrated with the topic with generative AI orchestration and that.
So calling the tools within a topic.
Yeah, like how we can call from topic to generative AI orchestration, like how it is interrelated. When we can use generative AI orchestration, it required to use always, or like it is based on the conditional base.
Like generative orchestration, you can, if at all, if you use, it is not like condition that you always use a topic or always use a tool. It would, because as you are using generative orchestration, you have the benefit of defining the properly tools, and you just don't need to manually wire it through topics. But topics are still there for the more control. As I said, uh, I want to trigger one of the particular tool, and for a deterministic flow, I can go here and add a tool, and whatever the tools that I have defined, I can call it from here. Or directly, even without defining tool over there, I can call certain connectors by adding a tool and going into the connector. It is not like a rule that you always define the tool or you always define a topic on generative orchestration, but keeping in mind the benefits of the generative orchestration and how the capabilities of it, we can solve it through either tools or topics. The best way is to actually use the combination of both. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, one thing, like can we connect here in the topic for generative AI orchestration and all?
So orchestration is actually working. You don't need to explicitly call any orchestration methods because as we have already enabled this generative orchestration, all these things as you see in this testing what we have did. So I have this one. This is like the orchestrator is invoking this, right? So whenever we turn that setting on, the orchestrator comes into action and the orchestrator does its job. There's no way or We don't need to actually explicitly call the orchestrator. Orchestrator does the job within the background. All we need to do is define the topics, tools, knowledge sources. The orchestrator will determine based upon the descriptions and instructions that we provide. We don't need to explicitly invoke orchestrator and all, and that option doesn't even have. We don't have that. Sounds good. Or you have any
Yeah,
questions?
got it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, sure, no problem. That's it. I think I also don't see any other questions on the chat. Over to you, Kunal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sandeep, for this incredible session. It was very insightful, and I'm sure me, along with the audience, we are working with a lot of ideas on the Copilot Studio to deep dive on this. Yeah, it was great meeting you, everyone. Thank you, Sandeep. I think that's what we have today. But yeah, definitely, I have posted Sandeep's profile. In case if you have anything queries, you can directly reach out to Sandeep. Also, I have posted a link for the community for the Jaipur Power Platform User group and LinkedIn community page. You can follow that page and you can reach out to me or Vipuljan anytime.
One more thing,
Okay.
can share this recording or you can put it in somewhere else. We can get it the recording session. It is helpful to me, us.
Yes, Surendra. So definitely it will take couple of hours. We have a
Oh yeah,
YouTube
sure, sure.
channel. We will upload that into the YouTube channel only.
What is the name? YouTube channel? Same thing.
Uh,
Jaipur.
yeah, same. It's in the community page also. You'll find. Otherwise, I will
Okay.
separately share in the chat box also.
Okay, sure, sure, sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
it
Thank
is
you for
very good
joining us
Thanks,
on.
session. Thank you very
everyone. Have a great
much.
day.
Have a
Yeah,
nice day.
thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
you.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.